So let's work this out. Mini does 0 to 60 in what?
About 14 seconds.
No, hang on, that's not going to be very relevant though, is it? Because you're not going to get any grip off the tyres. All you've got up there is gravity.
Oh, I know, gravity's a cruel and unpredictable mistress, so...
Well, no, it isn't. It's a constant all over the world. But this is quite simple arithmetically. We've got, it's v equals u plus at. We know what acceleration due to gravity is, 9.8 metres per second squared. But that's weight component down a plane because it's on a slope. So we need to get the mass of the car, and we need to know the angle of the slope, and then we need to work out also the angle where it gets to the lip where it jumps off, and that will give us v, and it will follow a sort of parabolic trajectory. We should be able to then calculate the exact point when the car comes and meets the snow. That's quite easy.
I think we should go and get a cup of tea and work that out. So come on, James.
Hang on.
Is gravity going to be enough to get the car down the ramp and beat the skier?
No.
Right. Then we...
This is the Stevens Derailleur, which has 8 clutches. And what kind of dullard would think that that was brilliant?
That's brilliant.
What's brilliant?
This gearbox. Look, this is a 3-speed constant mesh. So those are constant mesh gears, and it has selector forks, but it doesn't have dog clutches. No. So that's like the brake band on an automatic gearbox, in fact. And in a modern gearbox, one would always be loose on its shaft, either the input shaft or the lay shaft. That's 1903, and that is basically what...
God really did mess up with Scotland, didn't he? Because, oh, look at that, this is my best work. And now it's going to rain constantly.
Yeah, he made something really rather beautiful and then covered it with a tatty old sheet in the form of the weather.
It's interesting that in the Islamic world, artifacts can't be perfect because only God is capable of perfection. But in Christian society, we like to think that God introduces some imperfection and flaws into the world, lest we should be blinded and driven mad by its beauty.
James, are your side pipes putting fumes into the cabin?
He began that by saying, it's interesting, isn't it? And then proceeded to not be interesting for the next 10 minutes. Back in the scrapyard, James was starting to get boring.
See, I think the 17 is interesting because it points to a lot of nascent developments in aerodynamics around that time, when transonic and supersonic flight was only just MiG Tu-15. It's a 2-seater version of the MiG-15 from the Korean War, but I believe that will have been built in China. You know, the relationship between China and Russia broke down. The Chinese started making copy-engineered MiG-15s.
But the flaps still work.
Ailerons, dear boy.
Have you seen this?
That's where the water will be.
The water will just simply, what's the word we're looking for? Come through there.
And you'll sink before you put your bit of wood in.
Because I've calculated it.
What's
Using
a
Archimedes,
spinnaker?
when a body is wholly or partially immersed in a fluid, it experiences an upthrust equal in magnitude to the mass of the fluid displaced.
This won't work. And then, to round off the evening... Oh, no. James made an interesting speech about all the cars I'd owned.
To your ears as car enthusiasts, is it not? But quite soon Jeremy moved on from the VW Scirocco GLI Mark I to a VW Scirocco GTI Mark II, the registration number of which was... Now, I've never known whether you had the manual gearbox or the first generation F1 semi-automatic shift. Which was it? Very keen for you to know that it wasn't a CSI, it was a CSL, the difference being chromed wheel arch extensions and different wheels, was it? Or something like those stripes on the
The wheels
side.
and it had aluminium doors.
Yes, of course it had the lightweight
Bullet and
doors and
bootless.
bolted, yes. But this time, the V8 engine. In dark blue, or was it black? Does anybody want to guess? Traditionalist at heart, as he is today, drives a VW Golf GTI in grey.
You missed the
J.May
CLK
Lectures
Black.
Clips. The what?
You missed the CLK Black.
No, it's not on this list. Which researcher put together this list of Jeremy's cars through the
You
ages?
didn't even write the speech.
Of course I didn't.
This is the worst birthday party I've ever had.
Come on, we made an effort. Anyway, shall I get the bagpipes?
Meanwhile...
One of the purposes of the original ground tour wasn't just to look at things and learn about things, it was also to enhance your capabilities. You would learn to do things. You might do, I don't know, writing sonnets, playing musical instruments, regional cooking maybe. I'm having a go at watercolour painting. It's absolutely delightful. Apart from my reverie is occasionally interrupted by the disgusting bellow of Hammond's muscle car.
At the Middlesbrough Institute of Modern Art, Captain's sense of direction had decided to make an audio guide that would steer visitors around the exhibits.
If you turn through almost 180 degrees to your left, or even to your right, in fact, because it, of course, makes no difference whatsoever, and walk straight ahead towards the wall, and rotating to your right, not quite through 180 degrees, but probably about 155.
I, meanwhile, was on the road, touring the local radio stations in a bid to drum up some support for our show.
Oh, this is fantastic. I've got a van, I've got a list of phone numbers, and I've got a mission. I'm a PR agent.
And then, walking through the white door, we arrive at the upstairs gallery. Actually, that's not quite right. You need to come out and turn left, or turn right if you haven't actually gone through the white door. Through the glass door, which you push, you are then in the upstairs gallery. The thing about this hat is you can angle it at like a heliostat to where the sun's coming from.
Yes, that's true. You still look a tit.
This thing really works. This rocks. Oh, my word.
At this rate, we'd be done and dusted in no time. However, my finicky colleague had an issue.
Hammond!
What?
Stop!
What?
Stop! You don't just smash it to pieces. You're supposed to sort of dismantle it and leave it in neat piles. It's all got to be tidied up. You can't just leave it like that. It's actually quicker if you do it methodically.
Oh, God.
But
Only
it is.
you would say
You
that.
want neat piles of bits of the house that then can be carted away. You need to work on that bit and that bit to start with. Then the rest of it will fall down neatly into a heap.
How can you make even this boring?
It's not boring. It's the way. I've watched it done. That's how you do it. You don't just smash it up. I'll do it.
James then commandeered my machine. So I got another one and carried on regardless.
And back! Ah, I've got it.
Oh, it's like winning one of those things at the fair.
No, 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 no,
Wait.
no, no!
What are you doing?
Look, the chain's come off. Sorry. I know, there's nothing much I can do, is there?
Go over here.
Why can't they build a machine where the chain stays on?
You've got that derailleur miles out of adjustment, though.
I don't know what you're talking about. What is a derailleur?
It's the thing that moves the chain across. You've bent it.
So the gearbox on this is broken. Well, we'll have to sell it and buy another one. After James had mended my geranium, he gave me a stern lecture.
Bicycle makes it. The reason people have accidents on bicycles is because of things like the brakes not working, worn out, wheel bearings bad, those out of adjustment, that out of adjustment, this not tight. You know, it's really easy, bicycle maintenance. You only need about 3 spanners and a screwdriver. So you see, you take the big spanner off, you can see the big spanner is missing, put the big spanner on, you know it's in the right place. If J.May Lectures came in here and did that, you'd see immediately that that is not the correct spanner for that peg. That should be on there, and that should be on there.
With James suffering from an industrial bout of OCD, to make matters worse, in the gallery, May was busy ignoring our instructions to make the audio guide interesting.
10, as it was codenamed during development, rejecting the complicated hydrogas suspension of its forebear, the Allegro, in favour of a straightforward steel-sprung chassis with a torsion beam rear axle, unashamedly derived from a design already used to great effect. Hello. Yeah, I'm doing it. I've just... Yes, I know it's got to be done by 3:30, but I can't do it because people keep ringing me up and asking me if I've done it yet.
I can't believe they're making us do this, because it's not like the radioactivity has gone. It hasn't. It has a half-life, the material that's left, of 245,000 years. And James May obviously can explain what a half-life is. In fact, he probably is doing.
Half-life is actually constant. A piece of uranium will have a half-life, and when that half-life is past, the remaining bit still has the same half-life. I think the word was coined by Marie Curie. The early 20th century was the time when radioactivity was identified, discovered, codified.
All right, because I've got something that's really bugging me. Has anyone seen these average speed cameras that are kicking around now? You know what I mean? So you've got to do... I was found on the M25 the other day through the roadworks. You had to do an average of 40 miles an hour, measured by 2 cameras, one at the beginning, one at the end. That's impossible. It's impossible because you drive along and you're sort of looking around and think, oh, God, I'm doing 42 because I'm going downhill. And you think, well, God, I've been doing that for half a mile, so now I need to do half a mile at 38, which means you can only look at the speedometer. You can't look at anything else, only the speedometer. And you go through roadworks on the M25 in the rain at rush hour. And I know what they're doing here. It's the government. Gordon Brown has worked out that he's got to pay all our pensions because we're all going to live forever. They're trying to kill us off. But I know how to get round it. OK, you go past the first camera, pull over, get the newspaper out, read it, listen to the radio for 10 minutes, do 120 for the rest of the way there.
That's not quite right, actually, because I can prove that the way to keep traffic moving through the roadworks, which is where those average speed cameras are, is for everybody to go faster from the start.
Yeah.
It's all down to the work of the Swiss physicist Daniel Bernoulli. You're familiar with him?
Oh, him.
Thought so.
He isn't.
No, he is.
He's never heard of him.
But what he essentially proved was that in a system, the pressure and the volume multiplied together must be a constant. So if you've got a busy motorway and it gets thinner and there's less space for the cars to go through, they must go faster for the flow rate of cars to remain the same.
So it's like when you put your thumb over the end of a hosepipe, the water comes out
That's
quicker.
exactly what it's like,
So
yeah.
how fast, then, if you take 3-lane motorway down to 1 lane, how fast does the traffic have to move in order to keep the flow rate the same?
Well, the formula would be VN would be LO over LR times the VE.
So how fast?
Which is 210.
210 miles an hour. You're ladies and gentlemen.
Fair enough.
All going by Bugattis and Zondas to cure congestion. So there we are. What?
Before we go on, is that actually a supercharger?
No, that's an oil cooler made to look like a supercharger, so it looks like a blower Bentley.
So this isn't a supercharged engine?
No, it isn't.
But a Spitfire's Merlin was supercharged.
I know, but this one isn't.
So that's technically the Meteor, which was the same engine, but the land-based version. Which
Yes.
is the unsupercharged.
Yes.
And this, obviously, the Bentley...
Yes, I'm sorry, James. Once again, we don't have time for your lecture on all aeroplanes since 1941. I'm sorry. By midday, the numbers had picked up a bit. But instead of following a prescribed route through the gallery, everyone was all over the place thanks to James's useless audio guide.
And then, walking through the white door, we arrive at the upstairs gallery. Actually, that's not quite right. Into the next room, the door of which should be open. Bloody Nora. True, but I can't do it because people keep ringing me up and asking me if I've done it yet. The 4 walls are precast pieces of concrete, and then in the middle we have this, which is the chimney breast. And then there are steel RSJs running across, like that. Everything else in between is just wooden floorboards. So if we knock out that bit there, which is holding all of the house up, the roof and everything else will fall into a neat pile in the middle. While Jeremy hangs around in the children's playground out there, I'll go through a few hovercraft absolute basics for you. If we imagine looking at it from the front, you have, this is very basic, a platform, you know, wherever you sit and all the rest of it. There's a huge fan inside which blows air downwards to form a cushion underneath. Now, the clever thing is, this is contained by a flexible skirt around the edge, and for this reason, it's sort of self-regulating because a certain amount of this cushion of air escapes out of the sides, floating about pointlessly. So propulsion, you have generally another...
Sadly, before James had a chance to finish his interesting lecture, Hammond arrived with his car. James decided that rather than do the test again, he'd show his car was the fastest using maths.
It's this simple. I've got a crib sheet of all the facts, OK? Yours weighs almost twice as much as mine.
Yes.
OK?
Hang on. Still not doing 100.
75, 80, 85. Ah! Oh, now the speedo's died.
It's got a better power-to-weight ratio than a Bugatti Veyron, 517 horsepower per tonne.
I was forced to agree with James's conclusions. You know when James is telling you something and you start to feel drowsy?
Oh, God. Yes, it's like you've had a whole bottle of red, 5 portions of shepherd's pie in front of a fire.
Yeah, and it's embarrassing. It is embarrassing. He's in the middle of a story and you nod off.
It's awkward.
OK, it is awkward. However, it's all going to be solved with this. £8.99. You clip it on your ear, OK? Right. Get sitting still. James, explain torque.
Torque? Torque is fantastically simple, Jeremy. It's just a force at a distance. That's why it's in pound-feet, for example, or newton-meters. So...
It's waking me up as well. What's the point of that? I can hear
It is,
him
actually.
now.
I'd rather be asleep with his lectures. No, they also...
James,
however, simply didn't get the idea of this at all.
Does a cat know it's a cat? Does a dog know when it's old? What does he actually know?
What are you doing with them up there?
Well, I'll tell you exactly what's happening. Everybody's getting into a room where James May is talking, and they're stuck. This called for drastic measures. These are stink bombs.
So in machine terms, he's extremely bright, but he's inanimate. Does he have any feelings? Can we transfer our own feelings onto the crash test dummy?
Sorry.
Relevance. Rodin's thinker is sort of naked.
Oh, a bit of an itch.
The point of art is you have to interact with it. You don't just look at it. It's not... What's that sting?
With you. Sorry about that. It's unfortunate, but...
OK, if you'd like to move to the exits now, tremendous. Thank you for leaving here. Sorry about the smell. I've no idea how that happened.
What's really incongruous about this, I think, is that you're very obviously in a Bentley. All this looks very Bentley until you look down here and you see these symbols on this control knob, and it's very obviously a serious off-roader.
Oh, what? Those symbols. So you can set it for swamp, minefield, Christmas or Mexico. Nice.
Yes, Hammond. Shall I tell you something interesting about the wood, or one of the woods you can have in this? It only grows on a cliff face in Asia, and the way they get it is they have to abseil down it with their woodworking tools.
Why don't they just use wood from a tree that grows in a field?
I then showed Jeremy something I'd put together.
Hello cyclists, I'm here today to talk to you about bicycle maintenance. Let's start with the most important part of a bike. You simply rotate this adjuster until the brake blocks are almost in contact with the wheel, lock it with the nut, and then less movement means that the chain and the sprockets will grind together. Make sure there is no play in the steering head bearings. If there is, if you can feel a little clunk, clunk, clunk.
How much more is there of this?
Well, quite a lot, but, you know, there's a
How
lot...
long is this?
58 minutes.
What, a 58-minute thing?
Well, it's more of a public information documentary, if I'm honest. Wait.
While those two were bickering over the lawn, my shed was taking shape nicely.
The thing you've got to remember is that everything good in the world, especially everything good that ever came out of Britain, came out of a shed. Radio, television, jet engine, printing press, and in other countries, the aeroplane, the hot air balloon. See, the thing about this shelf is that on it, one day, will rest a component that Sir Stephen Redgrave, CBE, 5-time Olympic gold medalist, will pick up and use to create something brilliant. And that can only happen because people have sheds with stuff in them. You see what I mean?
The problem for me with the Bentley and the Aston is that they're actually a bit too hung up on being British. It is a bit of a British disease. We can't shake it off. We're obsessed with phony heritage and the meaning of tradition, and it's all just nonsense, really. Actually, if you want to talk about heritage and traditions, then the BMW has the strongest. It's still made in Munich by the same company. They make their own bits. And some of those bits are very good. It has a 4.4-litre twin-turbocharged V8 developing 523 horsepower. It also has four-wheel drive, rear-wheel steering and adaptive anti-roll bars. Has an 8-speed gearbox. It's not twin clutch, but it is flappy paddle and it is very sharp. There we go, drop it down to 3. This is a proper car. Not tinsel.